welcome back to my channel Hasty Books. This week is the week we've been waiting for. This week it will be the announcement of the winner of the Women's Prize Fiction for this year, which is very, very exciting. And ahead of the announcement, I wanted to give you my thoughts, final thoughts on the shortlist, and also a little bit of predictions, just a little bit. We'll see how it goes. And please just disregard how red I am. I've just come back from a run and it's really hot in the UK right now, so I am warm. So yeah, my hair is just dried just naturally from the heat as well from my shower. So anyway, we're not complaining about the sun, we love it. So first and foremost, I think it's good to acknowledge before I head into the shortlist that I think I was just overall disappointed with the long list this year. So I read all 16 books. Well, technically I read 15 and I DNF'd Glory after the shortlist announcement, just because I didn't want to keep pushing myself in books I didn't really enjoy that much. It was actually a bit of like a slog for me to get through this long list. And actually I really like what Kid the Reader said, or I think it was in a thumbnail for a video about the Women's Prize. It said, "Do I even like reading anymore?" And that kind of sums up how I felt about this year's prize. As you may know, I enjoyed Wandering Souls. I think it was potentially my favorite. I don't really know actually if it was my favorite, but I really, really enjoyed that story. Because I was overall disappointed with the long list, I think it just goes without saying that I was disappointed with the shortlist as well, just because it kind of just, I didn't love the books, so I wasn't gonna love the books in the shortlist, obviously, because they're the same books. But it's just a bit sad because last year in 2022, some of my favorite books of the year came from the shortlist and long list. Like, if you go look at that video, you'll see, I think, out of the top of my head, at least 3 of my favorite 10 books were from the prize last year. And I don't see that happening this year at all. I think it's good to kind of forward that in because I think it tells you a little bit about what my thoughts are going to be. So yeah, I've reviewed 4 of the 6 books of the shortlist in a previous video, so I won't go into big details. And also because I'm trying to keep this video concise, which we'll see how that goes. I'm going to not give you a list of my order. I'm just going to give you a little bit of thoughts about each book in order of least like to most like. So obviously that means we're starting with Pod by Lillian Paul. I had the slightly absurd thought that I was going to revisit this book for the shortlist and the winner announcement, and then I was like, I don't want to do this to myself. No. There's no need for me to reiterate all of my thoughts about Pod. My reaction to it being included on the shortlist will tell you everything, what I thought about this book. There was too much dolphin sexual assault. People keep saying it's sex, but most of it is rape, so not great. I also didn't think that the climate change messaging really did it for me. I just didn't think it was that powerful. What I did find more powerful was the man-made kind of crises that were mentioned throughout this book, but sometimes it was a bit absurd and grotesque because at some point I was talking to my husband about it and he was like, "Oh, and did this happen?" And I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Oh, I was thinking of like the cliche thing that would be included in about this book about dolphin and the sea," and I was like, "Yep." What I will say about this book, though, is that it is definitely used imagination and research, and Lillian Paul truly did something that I had never seen before and potentially never want to see again, but still I think she did something different, and that's something, I guess, to be celebrated. And again, I'm gonna go back to Kid the Reader. I really liked in their video, I think the kid said, Lillian Paul really woke up every day and said, "I'm a dolphin." I might be paraphrasing here, but I just love that because that is truly what Lillian Paul did. And here we are. Next, I think people will be a bit disappointed that it's so low down my list, but it's Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I have a lot of thoughts about this book, and I think a lot of people disagree with me, and that's fine. We all disagree about everything, I think. That's why, taste is subjective. To me, again, it was a really long slog of misery. I said it was a series of unfortunate events. That's how I read this book, and that's how every time I went back to it, I was like, oh, it was just difficult for me. And I know it was at many people's displeasure that I thought these things. What I will say about this book is that I think it's very well written, well constructed, well thought out. It has some really beautiful scenes and moments of reflection about kind of nature versus nurture, about family, class, drugs, love, relationships generally. And I really did appreciate those, and it really kind of sometimes made me reflect on myself as well. And that's a good book, and I really appreciated that about it. But to me, that was diluted in the complete misery that this book really relished in, which is what didn't do it for me. Next, we have Fire Rush by Jacqueline Crooks. I think it was a really good book, but it just wasn't for me. I did not enjoy reading it. And again, it's because of how much sexual assault is included in this. There's a lot of sexual and physical violence. I don't enjoy that. Come on, literary fiction, I really struggle with the amount of assault that is in these books. I'm also not a big fan of books about music, so I think that's kind of why it wasn't totally for me. But what I will say, I'm trying to kind of give you a little bit of both, and I do think that all these books have merits, So what I will say about Fire Rush is that, again, Jacqueline Crooks really did something interesting. And although I don't love books about music, and I don't think it translates that well to the written word, I was listening to the audiobook, and I think the beats and the melodies and the rhymes and all of that, which comes from the music culture that this book is basically immersed in, really came through in the audiobook. And I think that was really cool thing to do. I don't think that I would have connected with that if it had been a physical or ebook copy, so if I'd been reading. But I think that it did something beautiful, and if we disregard the sexual assault, I actually really enjoyed parts of the first half and definitely the second half. There was a lot of actual beautiful kind of Black joy that I thought was, one, important to showcase, beautiful loving relationship in the first half. In the second half, there's a connection to the Caribbean while the main character goes there. So I think that was really nice. Next, we have Black Butterflies by Priscilla Morris. This is a book I actually really enjoyed, but I do think, very similar to Wandering Soul actually, too short and not enough meat on the bone, not enough context, especially about our main character. While throughout the book we get these little tiny bits about her life outside the war, it really feels lacking. Why am I connecting to this person? I don't think that I did throughout this book, because it was a person during a civil war, and it felt like a window. And it is a very short book in the sense that there's 4 parts, which is the 4 seasons that in the 1 year, that this character Zora is kind of stuck in the middle of the civil war and not sure about leaving, and then decides maybe she should leave, and then trapped. So that was really interesting, and I think, again, very important in the context of what's currently happening in like Ukraine and stuff like that. Like, I have friends who were like in Ukraine when things were happening, and I feel some of the things mentioned in this book were things that they lived through, being like, it will be fine, and then realizing maybe it's not fine now, and I need to go, and things need to be saved, and what must be saved, and art and all of those things, which I think is important, but I feel like it could have had a bit more meat to it. Then in second place, we have Trespasses by Louise Kennedy, which is based during the Troubles in Northern Ireland. I really enjoyed this book. It is really slow-paced, which a lot of people have complained about, but to me, that wasn't a deal breaker. I actually enjoyed the slow pace. I was reading a physical copy, and I really got into her writing, into the story along with the main character. I did not like at all or appreciate the affair that was going on with the main character, who was in early 20s, and a man in his 50s. There's just some grooming going on. It was super weird and kind of power dynamic. Anyway, I know 24 is not a child, like I know that, but still. And What I did appreciate with this younger character though is her life and the storylines like at school. So the boys that she become kind of involved with to their lives, trying to help them because they're being bullied and just generally not treated well, which is a really understatement. And through that, I think we really got a glimpse of daily life and daily kind of occurrences, things that happen during the Troubles in Northern Ireland. And yeah, I thought it was really well done generally, and I like the story that book ended as well. Yeah, I thought it was a really strong debut novel. And finally, in first place, and I'm sure you'll have guessed it if you've kind of followed along, what is left is The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. I did not expect this to top my list, but this book got me. I wasn't loving it, like it was all right. And then boom, I was like, I love this book. And I love the plot twist. I love how it kept me going, you know, because it kept going between present time, and by present time I mean the storyline when the girl's about to die. And then we go through like basically her growing up and coming all the way to this time where she's stuck in this remote hunting lodge with her husband and she thinks he's going to kill her. Again, there were really some tough moments, especially when you remember how young the character is. Like, we have a whole scene where, you know, she's having sex, being raped, marital rape by her husband, who's much older than her. And she's a child, literal child. And it's really weird that we get scenes like that. And I get that it's what used to happen. But yeah, that was difficult. There was just a lot of like the pressure of that time on women, and I think that was well expressed because it was very frustrating. But I think really for me what did it is the end of this book. And this is kind of a good segue to go into the second part of this video, which is kind of my predictions. Because you maybe would expect for me to say, I hope The Marriage Portrait wins because it's topping my list. It topped my list in terms of enjoyment, and I think the plot twist at the end just pushed it to the edge, and I was like, woo, loved it. And sometimes books get me like that, where I'll love the end and then that'll just make me rethink the whole book. But that said, I just don't think that The Marriage Portrait did something that unusual and that different, that inventive. And if that's potentially what the jury is looking for, then I don't think that The Marriage Portrait should win. But what other book do I think should win? I found it really difficult because out of all 6 books, I really enjoyed The Marriage Portrait, but thought it was just like the plots and just everything, the way it was written, wasn't that exceptional. I thought the same thing about Trespasses. Good book. I don't know that it did something like, you know, really different. Obviously, if we would do the most different, that's Pod. I don't want that book to win. It might. Because again, if that's what they're looking for, they might pick Pod. No, I don't want Pod to win. Ugh. I mean, it would make for a great reaction video, wouldn't it? But for me, I'm going to say Fire Rush would be my winner. I didn't love the book, but there's definitely huge aspects of it that I enjoyed. I think it did something different and creative, and to me, that's the one that I would reward of this year's shortlist. That's kind of my prediction that I want. Prediction, what I think is going to win. I think everyone's been saying that Demon Copperhead is going to win. I personally, if it wins, I'll be like, yeah, okay, sure it won. I've said it before, to me it reminds me a little bit of the Book of Form and Emptiness because it was some great pearls of wisdom within a lot of rambling. But also, is it a great circle? Is it a book that keeps being nominated and keeps not winning? I guess we shall see. And the announcement. I mean, there's only a 1 in 6 chance that each of these books is going to win. So really, it's up to anything, you know, just don't know. Creativity, Pod might win. Demon Copperhead might win because of its just large body of, of themes and of, it's trying to say big things through this book. I think Marriage Portrait, I don't see that one winning. I don't see Trespasses winning either. Although, I'll be pleased, whatever. Black Butterflies, I really truly think it just was lacking a little bit. But I quite like that they shortlisted it because I think it highlights something really important and the messaging that's really important. And I would look forward to seeing what the writer does next. But yeah, so that's kind of my prediction. I've taken a bit of a cowardly way out in terms of what I really think is going to win, because I really don't know. I mean, you never know. I didn't know Book of Form and Interest was going to win last year, and here we are. So I will be back very soon with my reaction to the announcement. I look forward to seeing what's going on, and yeah, well, we'll see. Exciting. In the meantime, let me know in the comments what you think of the shortlist, what you think is going to win and why. I cannot wait to share that with the whole booktube community that's interested in the prize. And yeah, I look forward to hear more from you. As always, thank you so much for watching, and see you back. Bye.